Well, thank you all for joining us this morning. It is now 10:30, so we're going to kick off our autograph webinar course. It's week 1 of 4. Hopefully you've been able to sign up to some of the future weeks. Before we get started, we've assumed that you've read the assumed knowledge file that we emailed out to you, but we've also shared a Dropbox link in the chat for some how-to guides and some tasks that we'll be running throughout the day. It is week 1. We're looking at shape. We're going to look at some reflections, some rotations, some enlargements, and some translations. We'll then look at some combinations of transformations as well. So hopefully you're going to find the session really useful. We're going to give you a bit of an overview of the how-to, and then we're going to give you some tasks for you to complete. If you don't already follow us on Twitter, we're at Salle Ed. We also have the account at Autograph Maths. So if you would like to follow us on Twitter, we're at Autograph Maths and at Salle Ed. Your co-hosts for today, myself, Robert J. Smith. I'm on Twitter, RJS2212, and Douglas Butler, who's going to be leading the autograph sessions, at Douglas Butler 1. Again, if you've got any questions or answers that you want to drop, you should be able to drop those into the chat, and hopefully you will be able to get those picked up. Doug, if I can pass to you, and hopefully you can lead us through the first session.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is quite a new experience for me and possibly for you too. What you're looking at is a program that's been around since the 1990s. So it's very mature and very advanced and totally based on teaching experience. And that's what we really like about Autograph, and I hope that this will come across today. A lot of people think it's really only for A-level, but boy, there's so much you can do for the Key Stage 3 and 4. And we'll be running through those various topics today, which I hope will make you really enthusiastic to use it yourself. So we're going to start off with the topic of reflection. And in order to do that, we need to open up a 2-dimensional page. So if you're not familiar with Autograph, that's for statistics, which we'll be doing in the 4th of these seminars. This is for 2-dimensional stuff, and this is for 3-dimensional. What's missing here is the extra one on complex numbers, which is available in the advanced level. If any of you have loaded up inadvertently into the advanced level, can I suggest if you don't see a 1 and a 0.1 here, but you see radians and degrees, then go to View, Preferences, and switch to Standard. So if you're on Advanced, switch to Standard. Then we're all doing the same thing. So the way it opens up on a 2D page, you have a standard axes here, X and Y, and various things down here which we're going to use as modes, and in particular we're going to use the point mode. But whenever you go into one of these modes, remember to go back to select mode afterwards, otherwise you're just doing more of this. So let's make a little shape. Just make a little trivial shape like a square. So notice also that as you put these points on, they're all integer values, which is one of the features of the standard level. If you want to go into point ones with a bit more detail, you can do that. Or if you really want to get involved, you can change the snap settings manually, but that's for later on. Select, just to select that lot and press delete. Now I'm going to introduce you now to the keyboard. The keyboard it's very important, except it's hiding behind this lot. How do I get rid of this lot? Here it is. This keyboard is fantastic, and if you're using this in any sort of teaching and presentation mode, I think it's important that the people who are watching you do this know what you've just done. For example, I've selected that lot, and I want to press delete. So I'm actually going to press the delete key, and everybody can see what I've done. So no secrets. This opens up for it to do other things, but we'll do that later. So selecting this, what I want to do, I want to make this into a shape. So right click, and the right click, you see with nothing selected, right click has only the top level objects. With something selected, 4 points, right click, group to shape. I could make it into a data set, but I'm going to make them into a shape. What does that mean? It means I can move the shape around. At the moment it's going in 0.1s, I'd rather have it on 1s. So it's just popping around the integers. You can change the individual points if you wish to. If when you're making one of these things, you get that sort of shape, just make sure that you enter the points in a logical sequence. So you can select the shape, or you can select an individual point. If you select the shape with the left button on the mouse, then right-click tells you all the things you can do with it. You can edit it, you can do it, and so on. But we want to transform it. And we want to transform in one of these. Now, if you reflect in the x-axis, you could just press the button and it would do it. But it's much better, if possible, to get the pen out and get a student up to scribble on the board or maybe on their own piece of paper where it's going to go. It's quite common for people to think X and that it's going to go over here. And of course, if they do that, when the computer does it, it then shows that they weren't correct. So there's a lot of thinking time, I think, between deciding what you're going to do and actually doing it. And then you can see that it does indeed reflect. You can also reflect in lines. So you can reflect in either axis. You can reflect in lines, and there's lots of ways to put lines on. For example, you can put a point here and right-click a line option. If you're familiar with previous versions of Autograph, you will be pleased to see that now there are sub-menus here to tidy it all up. So all the line stuff goes in here, and the circles and so on. You can do a horizontal line, or you can do a vertical line, or you can do a line at a certain gradient. If you want to put in a particular value of the gradient, you can do that. And all these lines, including equations, of course, right-click, enter equation y equals x, keep it nice and simple. And any one of these lines, you can select the shape and the line, and you can transform, reflect. So again, think about where it's going to go. It's going to go down here before you actually press the button. So those are the basic techniques for reflection. And if you like to have a look at the how-to document that you've been sent, and you've got some instructions here about how to actually do it, which is pretty straightforward. And then later on, there's some nice tasks for you to have a go at. So the basic sequence is put some points on, make a shape. You can make any shape you like. Doesn't really matter. Select it, and then right-click, group it to a shape. And once you've got the shape, you can select it and a line or an axis and transform reflection. Okay, have a go at that.
Perfect, thanks Doug. So again, I've shared the link to the how-to and the tasks in the chat. If you want to have a go at looking at those tasks, we'll spend a couple of maybe 5 or 6 minutes looking at those tasks. If you want to drop any questions about reflections into the chat, and we will do our best to help you. For those people that have just joined us, we've opened Autograph, we've created a shape and done that with the chat. So again, I've just posted the link into the chat again for those that have just joined us. It's a Dropbox link. Hopefully you can see that now, Anne and Paula. But again, I can drop it into the chat again if you need to. Hopefully, if you've got any questions about reflections in a line, in a point, then you'll be able to have a go at doing those. Doug, if you want to minimize your instructions, and hopefully people can see your screen. Okay, Kevin's saying that when he right-clicks on the screen in Autograph, he doesn't see any of the menus, such as line coming up. Kevin, if you create a point first using point mode, click a point, and then right-click the point, then the menu should be there. Hopefully that helps. Drop another comment in the chat if that doesn't work for you. But yeah, perfect. Thanks, Kevin. That should work. And thanks to Tom for sharing the link to the Dropbox file again. That's very useful, Tom. Thank you for that. Don't forget, we'd love to see some of your screenshots shared on Twitter using @AutographMaths and @LaSalleEd. We'd love to see how you're getting on with the course. We'd love some feedback at the end. That would be great. Okay, Habada's got a square and a line that they're trying to reflect in Doug. If you can just create a line, a vertical line for us, scroll across, Doug, create a line for us, select the share square, and then you should be able to right click and reflect in the line. So to reflect in the line, select the shape, select the line, it should be highlighted, and then click reflection, and it will create the reflection. You can then move the original shape as Doug is now, or you can move the point where the line is and move the line to where you want the reflection to be. So Doug, if you can just show moving the line and how all the lines move with the point. Notice that the y = x line won't move with that point because that is an equation line, so that will always stay as a fixed place. But you can always transform the shape. Couple more minutes on reflection. If you've got any more questions, if you can drop them into the chat, that would be hopefully really good.
The students are expected to understand the concept of invariance, and you can move, for example, this square onto the line that is forming the reflection, and that point, of course, is invariant. One or two people asking, how do you do a rotation? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do next. So if we just hang on 2 seconds, we'll get stuck into some rotating.
Okay, for those that have joined us after, hopefully you've seen the Dropbox link to the tasks for reflection. Hopefully you're managing to get through tasks 1, 2, 3, and maybe up to 4, 5, and 6 now. We've got a couple of minutes left to have a go at those, but we're going to move on to rotation shortly. And Doug will hopefully at the end make sure that you've got a link to all these resources, and you can always follow up the tasks at the end of the session. So and it might be worth reiterating that when you ask questions, you do have the course materials, so you can look at the how-to and tasks worksheets. Hopefully they will explain to you how to do each of the tasks. We're going to move on to rotation now, Doug. So if you want to create a new 2D graph page, top toolbar.
So here it is. Here's a new 2D page. Now, to get something to rotate, we need two elements in place. We need a shape, and what else do you think we need? We need a point. And so let's put those two objects on. First of all, we make a shape from various points. Let's make a triangle. And let's have a point that we're going to use as our center of rotation. So select those three, that's by dragging across, or you can just select them individually one at a time. And then right-click, group to shape. Here is our triangle, and here's our point. So if we select that and that, right-click, transform now gives all the things. We've got two options here. We've got rotation and enlargement. Well, we'll do rotation first, and then later on we'll do enlargement. So rotation. And if it comes up as pi by 2, you're in the advanced level. So watch out for that. Go to View, Settings, and change it. So 90 degrees is the default. Clockwise or counterclockwise. Now, counterclockwise is the standard because the way coordinate geometry works, this is 0, and angles go around that way. So counterclockwise. But if we wanted to go clockwise, click on that. Show construction lines. We'll put some quite useful circles just to give a visual link as to what's going on. So once again, think about it, perhaps even draw it at where it's going to be in place before you press OK. Now, another very important feature of the standard level is that it is in equal aspect by default. It is in squares. In the advanced level, you find that isn't necessarily the case, and you have to keep pressing equal aspect mode. And if these don't look like circles, so they look like ellipses, then that's another feature of why you should press equal aspect. But it's on by default in the standard level. So what can we do with this? We've now got that we can move this around if we wanted to, or we can move the original shape around. Can we move this around? Yes. If you select it, you'll notice that the Animate Object lights up. With nothing selected, it's asleep. But as soon as you select something which is animatable, if that's a word, then click on that and you get this little dialog here that will help you move it around to different angles. You can either do that or you can double click on it and put another angle in here. And for the adventurous amongst you, if you click on that and click on Animate, you get the chance to, at the moment it's on manual, but you can repeat. You can go all the way to 360 and then start round again, going again. It's going in steps of 4 degrees. So boom, 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 boom. Okay, click on OK and just watch it go around.
Okay, that looks really good, Doug. So hopefully we're going to give people some time to have a go at creating a rotation with and without construction lines. And they can also have the opportunity to have a go at animating their rotations. So the tasks are at the bottom of worksheet number 2 called Rotations. It's got the how-to and tasks, and hopefully you can have a go at some of those more interesting rotations. And at the end, I'm sure Doug can show us a rotation of the rotation. So thank you very much. Hopefully document 2, you can have a go at creating some rotation with some animation. Any questions, drop them into the chat and we'll be more than happy to try and help you. Again, for those of you that joined late, the Dropbox link is in the chat with the how-tos and task documents available. Okay, so you can only see the chat from when you logged on, AB. So if you have a question, if you want to drop it into the chat, then we'll answer that for you. Okay, so Wilco is asking, how do we animate the reflection, Doug? So if you could maybe minimize your task instructions, and we can maybe show how we do that.
I don't think a reflection can be animated because it's either there or it's back where it came from.
Yeah, she meant rotation. Sorry, Doug. So if you can just
oh
click,
yeah. Okay. Let's close that down. Once you've got a rotation, when you click on it, you can either double click and put in a new one, but that's a bit slow. If you click on that, the Animate Object wakes up. It's the lightning at the top. There she goes, and you get this little dialog here. At the moment, I've got it set up already, but you just click on that. Manual is how it starts off. Automatic, it's already set up, 0 to 360 in steps of 4. If you want to go up and down, so it will go there and then back again, do it that way around. And then you just go.
And there's a question from Rajan in the chat, Doug. It's how do you rotate a shape about its center? So you could maybe move the point of rotation to be the center of the shape, or
oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's no reason why you can't put the point anywhere you like. Let's go back to point 1. Yeah, okay. It can be a little bit confusing, but round it goes.
Hopefully, Rajan, that answers your question. We've just got a few more minutes to get on to the tasks. Tom, you're asking how you can get the lightning animate button to come on. If you look at your image for the shape that you started with, if you select the image by clicking on it, you'll see the highlight of the points and the shape go on, and then the Animate Object button will be lit up. So hopefully that answers your question, Tom. Drop us a comment in the chat if you need any more help with that. Doug, do you just want to show how to rotate the image of the image?
Oh, well, yes, I suppose you can. Haven't thought about that. Let's put a point here. Select the point and the image. I'm not sure this is going to work because that image is a dependent object. I'm not sure this is going to do it. Let's have a look. Oh, it has. Okay, it's counterclockwise. I suppose it is an image. And then, I see what you're going to do. You're going to have 2 animations going.
That's it, Doug, if you didn't anticipate that coming. But yeah, so now let's see what happens now.
That's doing that one, and that's doing this one.
Yeah.
Very good.
So a couple more minutes having a go at those. Can I move the grid so the origin is higher up? For example, if you zoom big, it's too small. Doug, do you want to just show the grab mode and the plus and minus zoom in options on the left-hand toolbar?
Certainly can. This is the drag. And this will zoom in where you click. So if you want to look at more detail there, and this will zoom out where you click.
And then obviously the Marquee Select.
And that's the Marquee Select. If you just want that little bit there, you've got it.
And you can also drop back into equal aspect mode, I think, or is it going to stay in, Doug?
You need to do that if you've done a funny zoom. Yeah. If you zoom away and everything disappears, then the red tick is your savior. Click on the red tick and everything will magically come back to, won't it? Perhaps it will when it's, oh goodness me, it's all gone to sleep. That's not a good idea, is it? Oh, there it goes. It was having a bit of a think.
Yeah, hopefully that answers your question there. Anne? Yeah, so Catriona, to show and hide the construction lines, I'll get Doug to talk you through that. If you go to the axes option on the top toolbar,
I think she's referring to these construction lines, and they are set up when you do the original transformation. So if you double click on this, for example, no, I don't mean that. Show construction lines is an option. You just take those off and they've gone. Double click on this one, take them off, and they've gone.
Do you want to show how to hide the axes as well, Doug, while you're there?
I certainly can. There's a button here which will just do it straight off. And that's because a lot of geometry doesn't really require numbers, although these do, of course. And if you think that's a mistake, you can go back to here. Talking mistakes, there's always undo. There's an undo button on the keyboard, but you can also do Control Z. That will just go back to the start, including that little problem. So are we ready for the next topic?
I think we've had a good go at some reflection and rotation there, Doug. Hopefully people will drop into the chat if they've got any issues with either of those. If you want to move on to measuring angles, that's
yes. To measure angles in autograph, you need 3 points. So let's just put a point here and a point here and a point here. And the basic principle is if you select them in the order, if you want to do the angle down here, select, and the angle you actually want to put is in the middle one, and it's selected in a way that will clockwise take you back to the start, which so the angle will be down here. So that's this one, and this one, and right click it to create. The way these submenus work, you know, anything to do with a point, line, circles, or vectors, they've got their own, but anything else goes in the create menu, angle. And here you get the chance to allow it to do a reflex angle, so it will go beyond 180. And there it is down there. If we move this down here, you can see that it does in fact go right the way around.
Do you want to put your line segments in, Doug, so that's a bit clearer for people to see?
Yep. Well, we're going to do that next, but I'll do that in this one. This menu does expand, and if you're not familiar with the new version of Autograph, this is one of the really useful features. You can look for intersections, line segments, vectors, or circles. So if we do line segments, wait for the little white arrow and join it up to wait for the little white arrow, and then once again up to here. So let's do a little exercise then. I thought it'd be quite useful if we drew a square. So let's have a square here, and you can create these objects on the fly like that. And a rectangle. I'm taking my hand off the mouse to perform each line segment. Now I want to go back to select. No, I don't. I want to put some more line segments in. I want to put the diagonals in. So notice as you go, there's that little white triangle. You see, it could end up all over the place, but we want it to go there. So that's where we definitely finish it off. Again with this one. There, finish it off. But we want to measure this angle, which of course is a right angle, but again, the standard method, 1, 2, 3, in such a way that it's a clockwise motion to fill up the angle. Right click, create angle. Now we have the usual choices, but it's relevant here. Just click OK, and there's your 90 degrees. This one won't be the same because obviously it's different dimensions. So we do this one, and this one, and right click, create angle, and we don't need reflex either. So obviously you could put this back to a square, and then it would end up as a right angle again.
Okay, the how-tos are here and exercises for you to have a go.
Okay, so if we're looking at document number 3, measuring angles, we've got the how-to instructions and the task there. Hopefully you can have a go at creating those angles and the reflex angles using both the line segment and the intersection mode. And then if we just allow maybe 4 or 5 minutes on those tasks, I think they're fairly straightforward. If you've got any questions, drop them into the chat. We'll be more than happy to try and support you with some of these angles. And then, Doug, maybe at the end you can show us about that parallel line intersection there. Intersection mode, Tom, is on the point menu on the left-hand toolbar. If you extend it out, the intersection is the second option, and a little circle will appear when 2 lines intersect. So, if Doug, you draw 2 line sections, just in a cross. When he selects the intersection mode on the left-hand toolbar, when he hovers over the intersection, a circle will appear. He can click and it will create the point that is the intersection. Hopefully that answers your question, Livia and Tom and Anne and Hannah. Okay, so Anne's stuck at creating the intersection, Doug. So if you can show her how to create the line segments from the left-hand menu. So we click the third option, I think, is line segments from that point menu.
That's right. So if you've got a square like we have here, what we're doing is drawing the diagonals. So we go up to here and extend it a bit, and you've got these extra point modes, and this is for line segments. Wait for the little white triangle and take it down to there. Wait for the white triangle and take it down to there. Then the intersection of those two will be found using the intersection mode, which is this one. And again, wait for the little triangle and there it goes.
And then to create the angle, Doug, if you can just select the points and just show how we can select those points.
Yep, we want the order so that you go this, 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 and then it's a clockwise motion back to the start, and that will give you the angle here. If you wanted the exterior angle, you would go this one, this one, this one, and then clockwise around to here. We want the interior one, so that one, that one, that one, right click, create, it's off the bottom, right click, create, angle, and click OK.
Yeah, hopefully that answers everyone's questions on being able to create that angle. If we just give you a couple of minutes to create that task. Anne's saying that she doesn't know what she's doing wrong, but the line segments don't appear. If you can click that left toolbar arrow that extends the menu, Doug, and the line segment is the third one across, Anne. It's point mode, intersection mode, line segment mode. So hopefully that will find it. And Mark, yeah, holding down the mouse button as you drag, hopefully that will work for you, Anne. So drop it in the chat if you need any more help. Do you want to show the other task with the circle, Doug, with the angles?
Yep, sure. A couple of things to do after this, which is a new page. Just to, I don't think you need to do this, just watch for a second. I'm just making a random shape of several points. and go back to select mode and select the lot and right click convert to shape.
Doug, while you're there, can you just click one of the line segments between the 2 points and just change the color for Gil?
Oh, that what you want the color there changed?
Yeah.
Yep, let's make it red. And if you want to change the inside color, you go to yellow or whatever. That's our shape. What I'm going to do now is to enlarge it from here and show that the angles are retained. So I'm going to select the point and select the area, the shape, and right click, transform, enlargement. Now the way to do enlargement, convincingly, of course, is to think about it. If that's 2, everything's going to be doubled. So it's going to be here, that's 3 along and 1 up, it's going to be 6 along and 2 up, and so on. You get the idea of where it's going to be, so there's no surprise when it actually does it. Get to the hand and move it down. So let's look at an angle, and this angle here looks like a good candidate. So we'll do this one, this one, this one, right click, create angle, and it's 90 degrees. And the equivalent angle in the transformed object is this one, this one, this one, right click, create angle. So I think it is important that let's just go to 0.1 and just move it up so it's not 90 degrees. You can see that whatever the angle is here is exactly the same in the transformed object in enlargement.
Do you want to also show people how they can animate that enlargement, Doug, from Scale Factor?
Yeah, of course. Again, just like with the rotation, select the transformed object and the animate object is waiting to do your service. And you can go, you increase or decrease. Now, if we're talking about key stages, by the time you've got to key stage 3, you're expected to understand about enlargement like this. But the scale factor going negative is part of key stage 4. And equally, you can animate that from -3. That'll do. Just take the defaults, and it's not too bad.
Okay, so hopefully you've got enough there to be able to create an enlargement and find the angle and show that the angle is the enlargement as well. And also be able to animate that. So we're using the skills we learned earlier in rotation to be able to animate an enlargement as well. So Doug, if you want to show them document number 4 on enlargement with the tasks, and then hopefully people can have 6 or 7 minutes to have a go at some of those. Remember, these documents will be available to you after the course, and you can have a go at some of the other tasks. And thanks, Hamada. The animate function is really cool. Hopefully you can have a go at some of those tasks. So 6 or 7 minutes to have a go, create an enlargement and have a go with the animate. And if you really want to try and work out how to create that number 5 task there, that's quite nice as well. And remember, you can move the original shape and the center of enlargement as well. So have a go at those tasks and drop any questions into the chat, and we'll hopefully be able to help you out. Doug, you might want to move that task screen to one side or just to the top corner, just so we can see your screen. That'd be great. Perfect. Livia's asking, is there a way to export the animation as a GIF?
I use Jing.
Yeah.
You can make a video of that with or without the microphone. There are lots of freebies out there that will do this sort of thing.
Jing's a piece of software that allows you to record screen captures, David. I'm not sure everyone will have that, Doug, but I know on a Mac you can use the screen recording there. I think there's other options available as well. But yeah, we're not going to look too much at that, Doug, if that can
I just
come
mentioned
for another time. But yeah, there is. It is nice to see those shared on Twitter with at Autograph Maths and at Salle Ed. So if you want to share any interest in creations you do, we'd love to see them. And hopefully we can see some of those tweets later today or tomorrow.
What I have discovered with Twitter is that there was a time when they only accepted GIFs as a GIF files as for animations, but now they take MP4s, so you can just make them with normal tools.
Do you want to maybe show the enlargement of production? That's, I think, task 4 on that task worksheet, Doug. Do you want to just show how people might create that?
All right, let me just get it up.
That's it, number 4.
That one there.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the original one, is it? Yes.
No, the blue triangle's the original.
Oh, I see. And you're expanding it and then you're reducing. Yeah, okay.
So the first task is going to be to hide those axes, Doug. So I think we need to go to the axes menu. Oh, we want the grid line, so we want the axes menu and then just hide the XY axes.
Oh, I see. You want to do it that way. That's all right. There's 2 ways to do it, but we'll do it through the axes, edit axes. And it's the options. You want to have no axes, but you still want to have the grid. That works quite nicely. And we had a point up here, and we had a little triangle. Group to shape. And we're going to enlarge that. So select that, transform, enlarge. Scale factor 2, that'll do. So we've got one up here. Then we have a point over here. We now want to enlarge that one. Transform, enlarge, and 0.5. Take it down there.
You can also put 1/2 in there rather than put
yes, you certainly
decimal,
can.
So,
or we can put a third. If you want to have fractional.
Yeah. And again, you can move the original shape or the point that we did, or we can move the second point. So again, it shows how powerful that can be.
Shall I move on to doing the areas in relation to the enlargement factor?
Why don't you do the areas? Yeah, that would be nice, Doug.
I think that will follow on nicely from this. So I'm just going to do something really simple, a little triangle. And a point. And select the point and the triangle and right click, transform, enlargement. Scale factor 2. Again, everything's going to be doubled. So that's going to go to here. That's going to go to here. So it's going to be a bigger triangle up here. There we go. Now, we can work out these for ourselves, but if it was a more complicated one, it's nice to have some computer assistance. So this is a good opportunity to introduce you to a wonderful new feature for Autograph, which is a calculator. And you may say, well, what's it going to calculate? Well, every object in Autograph now has attributes. That is to say, values that belong to that object. So in this case, for just a point, it's just X or Y. But for this thing, you've got perimeter or area. We want area. So that's the area going to go into this calculation here. And then nice text before, area 1 space equals space. Half the base times the height is 1. So that's the area of that one, and it comes up in a little box. What about the area of this one? Well, again, open up the calculator. And let's do area 1 result times, and this one has the scale factor squared, R2. So this is area times, let's do D squared. If we want to do a proper squared, we can use our friend the keyboard. And a proper squared is there, equals. And that is 4. Now, is that indeed the correct answer? 1/2 the base times the height is indeed 4. But
can you just show the area calculated with the calculator, Doug, just to show that people don't have to work it out with the scale factor themselves?
Oh, yes. I was just making the point, of course, that it is the square of the scale. But yeah, of course. And here's the calculator again. I hover over this, and area is one of the options. So if we call this area 2 space equals space.
And we can see there that the two areas are equal. We didn't have to calculate it with the scale factor, but it is nice to show that they do give the same.
Absolutely. And you can obviously have different shapes and all sorts of things. And, I mean, you could do it back on this one, just the same. Each one of these has an area, which is not so obvious to work out for yourself, but it's nice to have the computer to do it for you. .2. So if that's scale factor 2, we all know now what the area of this one's going to be, don't we? 5.2 times 4, for sure. I don't know if we're allowing time to play with this.
We're going to give 2 or 3 minutes there for people to just have a go with the calculator, creating area. And Colette's asking, how are you creating new pages? Colette, if you go to the top toolbar, the second icon in is new 2D graph page. So if you just click that, it will give you just X, Y axes in the center of the screen. So hopefully, Colette, that will explain how to do that. That's great.
It's one of the really splendid things about Autograph is that everything you've done up to this point is here. So you can just go back and have a look at everything. Very, very useful.
And you can obviously save off each of those individual pages if you wanted to, Doug, using the file save as options, and you can save them as Autograph. And we'll just show the area calculation again, Doug. So if you just bring up the calculator, you click the calculator icon in the toolbar, it brings up the box. You click the shape that you want to find the perimeter or area or scale factor of. We're going to find the area. And then you can put the before text, you can put area equals, and in the after text, you could even put centimeters squared if you wanted to. If you were creating questions for your students, you could then have them look more like they would on an exam question, and you can drag that off to the one side. Yeah. Thanks, Doug.
Excellent.
So we'll just give you another minute or so to have a go with creating an area or a perimeter. And then we'll move on from enlargement. We're going on to translation, and we're going to translate by a fixed vector to start. So,
are we going to do the circle, or we'll do it later?
Yeah. And John, oh yes, we'll do this. We'll do that later, Doug, if that's okay.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't quite fit the same flow.
Don't worry, Karen, we've paid for a subscription to Zoom, so we're okay for longer than 40 minutes.
I wonder if that was the problem.
No, it was logging in on an incorrect account, unfortunately, Doug, but hopefully we're all fixed now. And yeah, apologies to those that got kicked out after the 11 o'clock. Aidy's asking how we find the area of one shape again, Doug. So if you just click on the calculator, click on the shape that you want to find the area of, and it should bring up the attributes that you can find. So we can find perimeter and area. We select area, and we could just click OK at that point. We don't need any before text, and it will give the value, and we can just drag that to go with our shape, or in the center of our shape if we wanted to, or we can dynamically change our shape so we can see that the area will change as well. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, Doug, let's have a look at those translations. Let's start with a fixed vector.
Now, as with everything else we've been doing, you have to decide what object you need in order to do what your objective is. In the case of reflection, we needed an object and a line. Now, to get a translation, we're going to have basically a shape. Let's make a shape, a sort of T shape. Select all. I'm sure you're all getting good at this now. So there's our shape. Now, to also do a vector, let's start off with a vector of 3, 1. Where is it? And you know, if you ask a student to come up to the board and draw a vector 3, 1, that hopefully the student will say, well, I'm not sure where to start. And the answer is, of course, you need to start on a point. So there is a point selected, and right-click. Now the vector menu has woken up, and you can put in a vector of 3, 1. What does that mean? It means 1, 2, 3 along and 1 up. So it's going to be here. Again, visualize before you press OK. Does that mean if I move this around, it's still the same? Yes, all these vectors are identical and exactly the same. So if we wanted to translate this shape by this vector, select that, make sure nothing else is selected, select that, select this, and right-click, transform, translate. Now, it also offers reflection in this line, fair enough, but we want translation. There it goes. What you can do is copy this vector to here, right-click, vector, lots of options, but copy vectors to what we want. So you can see that this shape has now translated to that. And whatever I do to this makes not the slightest difference. But there is another way to do vectors in AutoGraph, which is to put 2 points on. Doesn't have to be the same point as the first one, but just for convenience it is. That one, followed by that one, right-click, vector from 2 points. Yes, please. And that's quite different, but it's much more interesting because you can move it around. So if we now select that and this shape, right click, transform, translate, where's it going to go? One to the right and two up. There it goes. But look what fun you can have now. Ha! It can go flying around. So that's your task at the moment, is to create a shape, create a vector based on a single point. And if you select the vector and go to something else we haven't mentioned yet, is the text box. Text box will show you what you've actually created in a little box. So that's the vector 3, 1. And this one is going to be text box. Here it is. And that's the vector from 1 to 2. IL refers to labels, which I haven't mentioned yet. We'll do that in a moment. But when you create points in Autograph, they've all got labels, but labels are switched off by default. If you want to turn them on, you can, or if you want to select them all, you can show all the labels. It's a bit of a mouthful. I'll just select a few like that. Show labels. Now, these have got double dashes because it's a double transformation, single dashes, and the original ones are here. If we show those labels.
Great, Doug. So if you want to show the how-to guide and the task for people to have a go at that, hopefully they're still following along at home. And if they want to drop into the chat any questions they might have about either vectors or translating a shape by a vector, or even displaying the text boxes, drop those questions into the chat and we will do our best to help you. So if you want to drop those in the chat, that'd be great. The tasks are a little further down than that, Doug, but there you go. Keep going. There you go. Yeah, and David, Control Z does work really well for undo. It's definitely a useful feature of Autograph and other applications.
There's undo on here as well.
And Julie's asking how you copied the vector again, Doug. So if you can just
select
show
the
how
vector.
to copy the vector.
Select the vector and select the point that you want it to copy to. And right-click, vector, copy vector.
Hopefully that answers your question there, Julie. So select the vector, select the point, right-click, copy vector. And showing the text box again, Doug. So maybe if you want to show how to show the vector, that'd be great.
Right, select the vector. See, if you have nothing selected, the text box allows you to just scribble ordinary text. But if you have something selected, the text box is intelligent. It says, I know what you want. It's a vector, so it's 1, 2.
That answer your question? Hopefully it does. If it doesn't, drop another question or comment in the chat. That'd be great. Oh, and Anne's asking about the copy and the vector. So if you select the vector and the point that you want it to move to, Anne, if you right-click, then you can choose the option from vector, copy vector. Hopefully that explains that again for you.
Notice the text box is updating as you move it around.
While we're there, Doug, do you want to show again how to change the axes to disappear?
Certainly. I mean, one way is just to turn them off in one swoop. The other way is to have a look at axes, edit axes. You've got the spanner there, so you can actually click straight on here. And in the options, you can have none for axes, but keep the grid going. And one thing that's really useful is to have subdivisions of the grid. And if you have 5 to each one, that's going to have a little tiny bits of grid in between those. So it begins to look like real graph paper.
That looks really nice, Doug. And while we're there, do you want to show how to change the color of that T? Do you want to make it a yellow T that is solid fill?
Sure. There it is, and it's up here. But actually, the better way is to do right-click, edit, draw options. We'll be using that quite a lot in these sessions. Edit draw options allows you to do all sorts of things. You know, change the point type, for example, if you want to make those diamonds and a little bit bigger. You can change the color, say to yellow. And if you make that the same, at the moment it's set to 85% transparency. You can see the grid behind there. But if you want that to be solid, just back that down to 0, and there you have a rather horrible.
You might want the border of that to not be yellow, Doug.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. But hopefully you can have a go with playing with some of the draw options there as well while you're doing your translations.
With something selected, right-click, edit, draw options.
Yeah. Now we've got some time left. So, Doug, do you want to load the combinations of transformations? And they could maybe just have 10 minutes of just trying to use what we've learned to combine those transformations and create some more complicated examples for themselves. So that's in document number 6. It's called Combining Transformations. And there's a few tasks in there just for you to have a quick play at. So why not try combining a reflection with a rotation, with an enlargement, with a translation? So you might want to try and create what Doug's got on his screen there and see if there's a more efficient way of doing it. And any questions or comments, drop them in the chat and we'll try and help you do that.
And look out for invariant points as well. There's a couple down here to kick off with.
Again, for those that didn't spot the Dropbox link earlier with the how-to and the task sheets, I've just put them back in the chat there. Okay, so Sharina's asking, how do you enlarge when one of the points is the point on the shape, Doug? So maybe you want to show how you can move the point of enlargement so that it's on the shape.
Yep, good idea.
So Sharina, Doug's just creating a shape with group to shape, and he can put the point anywhere to do the enlargement. And then he can enlarge the shape from that point. And then if he drags the point, he can actually put the point to be one of the vertices of the original
If you change
object shape.
Point one, it's easier to see what's going on, and just see, there it is.
We can move it to one of the other points. And Mark's managed to answer his own question. So well done, Mark. That's great.
Always good.
And again, we'd love to see your images on Twitter, Autograph Maths and @Salle Ed. And hopefully throughout these courses, you're going to build up a skill set that you can then use back in your classroom and for creating your own activities and tasks for use with students. So we look forward to seeing those as well. And feel free to drop us a DM with any questions or comments after this course would be great. So we want to know how to put the labels on the shape, Doug. So could you just maybe show how to put the labels on one of your enlarged triangles there?
Yep, there we go. There'll be an awful lot of them. You basically select what you want to have and then right-click, show labels.
Okay, so you select the shape, right-click, and show the labels. And
or you select any single point and right-click, show label. Or if you didn't mean it, you can hide the label, or you can hide the point.
And can you just show how to edit that label to change the value to be something else? So that G might want to be...
You can change it to anything you like. You can also show its value, which in this case is 4 along and 5 up. And you're showing it. There's space for another description if you want to as well.
Okay, so you can mess around and have a go with labeling points and editing the labels. And you can either show or hide the value of the point as well. You might not want to see the coordinates at that point. So you might want to just unselect that option to show the coordinate value if you were creating a question.
Yep. Just double click on anything in Autograph to edit it, and double click on the label is no exception. And if you don't want the values, do that. Notice that in the Axes menu, Label Object is not ticked by default. Otherwise, you get a screen full of letters all over the place. So they're very easy to turn on. But if you know you're going to want labels, you can just turn it on there, and then everything you subsequently create.
And a question from Anne in the chat there, Doug, saying you can just save these pages as you would any file. Yeah, yes, you would, Anne. You just go to the File menu, and you have the Save As option there. And you can save those out so that you can just load them up next time. Hannah's asking, can you change the point from a circle to a cross? So if you can just show how to change the point setting there, Doug, as well. Select the point, edit the draw option, and then in the bottom option, the point style there, Hannah, you can select cross, I think is one of the options, and then you can just increase the point size if you need to, but I think it's probably fine as it is, and just click OK, and it will change it to a nice big cross. Hopefully that answers your question, Hannah, and Anne's asking, would that be the default shape for all points now, Doug? Can you just create a few points and see if that's...
No, because when that was done, I'm looking at the wrong thing, aren't I? Sorry, select that and edit draw options. there is an option to set it as the default. So if we set it as default, okay.
So you can set it as the default, and if you want it to be across.
But I think that was something that Mark, the programmer who is listening to this, was going to work.
We'll come back to that, Doug.
I think that's an option that a complicated program, and every now and again there are one or two things that need fixing, and that's one of them.
But you can select all 4 of those points. You should be able to edit the draw options for all 4 of those at the same time.
Yep, certainly can. You can hide the labels, edit the labels, trace the points, and edit draw options, plus sign. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to looking at polygons, Doug. We are going to run over our 12 o'clock finish time slightly because of the small interruption at the middle, but hopefully you can stay around with us. We're hopefully going to be staying online for doing those tasks, so we'll just carry on for another 10 minutes or so, Doug.
Okay, polygons are great. They're all regular to start with. I mean, you can make your own irregular polygon as an ordinary shape. But the standard polygons are very useful, and they're all created from 2 points. So click one point, click another. Now, did you notice that when I clicked another one, this one was selected, but this one wasn't? If I wanted to do that the other way around, so they are both selected, you put one down and hold the Shift key for the next one, and then they're both selected. Now, the order is important. I'll just get rid of that and get rid of that. The order is important. That one followed by that one. To make a regular polygon, it goes clockwise from there. So right click, create regular polygon from 2 points and however many sides you want. Let's have 4 sides, so it's a square. So there we have our square, and it went clockwise. If it goes on this side, just Control Z and try again, but get the order right. But the lovely thing about these is there's points at all vertices, so I could select these 2 and make another one. So create regular polygon. This time I'm going to put a hexagon. Now would it be nice if we could put a polygon in here? Yes, perfect. So that one, and right click, create regular polygons, 2 points. Let's start off with an equilateral triangle. But as with just about everything else in Autograph, if you select it, you can animate it by the one thing that makes it special, which is it's the number of sides. So we've got a 4, 5, 6. How many sides are going to just fit this nicely? 12. I'm sure you all know the name of this object. And of course, you can work out angles in the usual way. Right click, create angle, okay. 90 degrees, gosh. So there it is. To create a polygon, a regular polygon, put 2 points on, holding the Shift key down if you want them straight away, selected in the right order, then right click, create regular polygon, 2 points, however many sides you want, and off you go. Have a go at that. Here's the how-to document, followed by some tasks.
And for those of those following, we are going to hopefully make the recording of this task creation available at some point after this session. We're going to have to see how the 11 o'clock interruption might have impacted the recording, but we are hoping that we are going to be able to make this available to our YouTube channel with some other useful video links there as well. So hopefully if you did miss part of the session, you'll be able to catch up after this session, and we'll try and share the link to everyone. So hopefully that will be useful for all. Then we'll just give 4 or 5 minutes to have a go at creating some polygons, Doug, if that's okay. And then you might want to show your angles in a circle task that you created.
Yep.
Pip's asking when's the Mac version coming. Hopefully that is in development with the web version of Autograph, and we did hope that that would be at some point this year. So keep watching back for when that's going to be available. But if you're pre-Catalina, you should be able to work fine on a Mac at the moment. And Adie's asking, how do you get the animation to stop at side 12? Doug, do you want to just show the stop button and the animation, or do you want to have a go at creating it with the constant controller and varying the constant? Because that would be quite nice to see as well.
You can do that. I wasn't animating, I was just doing it manually.
Yeah.
So I was just going back up and waiting the stop at 12. You know, to make it animate, it's not really appropriate, I don't think, for this. There is another way of doing animations, which is instead of putting a number in here, put a constant in here. The constant will start off as 1, which isn't terribly helpful. But the constant controller we haven't discussed yet, because it's going to be very prevalent in the next session, all about graphing. But we can do 2, 3, 4, and then it'll wake up. That's another way of doing it, and that you can also do animations in the usual way.
So you can animate that from 3 to 12 for us, Doug. That'd be nice to see.
Certainly can. Or you can put comma separated values if you want to do 1, 3, 7, 12. That'd be another thing you can do. But otherwise, or I doubt if a family plot would work, but you can start from 3 and finish at 12.
Steps of 1?
Of 1, definitely. Then off we go. Hopefully, yes they are.
And you can adjust the animation speed in the options there, Doug, as well, if you want to slow that down just slightly. And you can play around with those settings. Can you show the labels on a polygon, Doug, is the question. So can you just show how you might show the labels on the polygon?
Okay.
I think it's in the same way that you'd show labels on any object by selecting it and right-clicking.
The object itself, show labels, is because objects that are not points have small letters as names. Now, if you want to label the points, you just select them. and show labels.
Yes, Poorni, you can sum the interior angles. So Doug maybe wants to label the angles and then create the sum of those.
Okay.
Using the calculator.
Certainly. We want this angle here, so we want to come this way so that it's clockwise. So this one, and this one, and right-click, create angle, and 108 degrees. There's a nice question on University Challenge last night, all about the pentagon. I'm very pleased to say I got it right. Not often I get things right on that show. So the calculator now. Let's have a look, see what we've got. What have we got undefined? Not sure what's going on there. So these are all the attributes that we know about for this object here. So we want to have the number of sides, which we happen to know is 5 anyway, times the interior angle. Okay, whatever. Answer 540.
Hopefully that answers your question, Paula, but you could just create the individual angles and you could add them up so that you could dynamically change that with a separate shape that you create using points. So yeah, thanks, that does. So great.
And if you go to 6, you're still getting the correct answer, because it knows the number of sides. Even though you're increasing the number of sides, the interior angle is changing and everything's changing, and they all add up. Summing those. You ready for the circle?
Yeah, we'll look at the circle now, Doug, and then if you want to just give us a taster of what's to come for next week, and then we can hopefully finish just by about 12:15, so only a slight overrun due to the interruption at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it's a pity. Never mind. We'll finish off now with looking at circles and circle theorems and how you can put those together. Again, we're not terribly interested in axes. Put a point somewhere in the middle and right-click circle with a radius of 3. There it goes. Doesn't matter where it is, of course. Now, to do the angle at the center is twice the angle at circumference theorem, which is a classic, and it really is the beginning of all the circle theorems. Let's start off with this. Notice that I'm waiting for the black arrow, and then it'll go onto there. Now we want line segments. So wait for the white arrow and wait for the white arrow. Wait for the white arrow down to here, and then up to here, and then down to here. And make sure we've done this right. Sometimes, you know, if you haven't done it very carefully, those two aren't joined together. Right, angles, 1, 2, 3, clockwise around to there. That's just what we want. Great angle, but we want it to be allowing reflex because I'm going to go around the edge. So it's 74 at the moment. So think about what half 74 is. I don't think you need a computer to prove the theorem that the angle at the center is twice the angle at the circumference. It's very easy to be done with a piece of chalk, but it's very nice to show it dynamically once you've got that established. So right-click, create angle. That's okay for that to be as it is. Half 74 is indeed right. What happens if we take this round to 180? Look at that, 90 degrees. Is this always not? Yes. Now that's nice to explore. What's going to happen if we go beyond here? Same.
And maybe you could animate that, Doug, and just show us what that might look like. And then I think if you just give us a quick taster of what's to come next week.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you can certainly animate that, and it'll just do the same. Animate, automatic. It's got the circular things already set up, and around it goes.
Perfect. Thanks, Doug. And just a quick taster for next week, and then hopefully any last questions can get dropped into the chat. And
yeah.
Then,
we might next week have time to slip into one or two things that we haven't had time to do. For example, bearings. That's a picture of Cambridge Airport with the runway number of 23. And if you create a vertical line here and a line along here and look at the angle, it was 229, which is amazingly close to 230, which is what the runway number implies, the angle between the direction of the runway and true north, magnetic north, actually. Triangle properties, we haven't had time to do that today. We might do that next time. Just making a triangle, making the midpoints, and showing that that is parallel to that. We've got a lovely new feature, which is if you select two lines of any kind, you can do a parallel test, and it becomes parallel or perpendicular when you move them around like that. Lots of fun and games we've had in 3D with 3D shapes. They are in the syllabus. You're expected to know what they are and to know how to calculate simple volumes and surface areas. So there they all are. The session for next time was to include some number work. I thought something like a 3, 4, 5 triangle is nice because they're all integers. But take a 1, 2, root 5 triangle. What the heck is root 5? Certainly isn't a number that you can express in just 2 or 3 decimal places. So put it on the number line and zoom, 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 and you can see that you never actually find out what it is. Good old standard y equals mx plus c approach really goes well with the dynamic approach of varying m and c, especially if you show a gradient function like that. Quadratic functions, you're expected to know all about intercepts and turning points and completing the square. Again, all lovely things to do in a dynamic environment. They're expected to know about cubic, reciprocal, and exponential functions, all quite tricky to start with. So again, well done, I think, in this environment. One of the new topics that's gone into the GCSEs in the last couple of years is inverse functions. Not an easy concept, but there's a really nice approach with autograph using something we haven't mentioned at all today because it's not really appropriate, but it will be next week. The XY attribute. You can make a point that whose coordinates are attributes of other objects. Very, very useful. Trig functions, yes, you can have a lot of fun with those. This is the one occasion where the standard level axes system isn't really appropriate because you've got hundreds along here and just 1 or 2 up this way. But the red tick takes care of all that nicely. There's a nice little demonstration of trig functions also built into autograph, which people aren't very aware of. And we can fetch a skier off the web and having skiing up and down a function because you're expected in GCSE to understand the concept of gradient, as indeed you are area under a curve as well. That's moving on to the week after, but just to whet your appetite, lots of fun and games to be had later on. And then finally, the final section is all about stats and data handling. And I think we're the only country in the world to teach histograms to 16-year-olds. I'm never quite sure why it's survived every cull of syllabuses, but there it is, and it's again something done really nicely in autograph.
Well, just before we finish off there, Doug, can I just say a big thank you from all of us here at Salle for week 1 on shape. Hopefully you have all enjoyed that session, and you're going to come back and join us for week 2 when we look at number and graphs. I'd like to take this opportunity to offer my thanks again to Doug, and we look forward to seeing you again. Just drop any final comments into the chat, and we look forward to seeing you next time.